in this video I'll be sharing my top 10 favourite sock yarns which are very, very tried and tested and why I like them too. Hello! So in my last video on this channel I went through how to choose sock yarns, outlining in detail the kinds of fibres, the yarn's properties that you will need to look out for when you're making that decision about which yarn to purchase when you're knitting socks, because there is so much out there available. It can definitely seem confusing and a little bit overwhelming, particularly if you are fairly new to sock knitting. In this video I'm going to be sharing my top 10 favourite sock yarns, so that if you just want a little bit more guidance, a little bit of hand holding, you know, sometimes it just really helps to get an actual personal recommendation from somebody. If you're new to this channel, my name is Anushka. I am a designer and a researcher and a knitter, and you can find me elsewhere online as the Crimson Stitchery, including on Ravelry. We have a Ravelry group, I have sock pattern, I have a monthly newsletter. Definitely make sure you're subscribed. All relevant links can be found in the down bar here on YouTube. And this video is coming to you courtesy of all of my lovely and wonderful supporters over on Patreon, who help support this channel via monthly membership subscriptions in exchange for a variety of different perks, including a private Discord server where you can get to know each other, chat, share projects in private. The Patreon is really integral to funding the Crimson Stitchery because it is a self-funded, crowd-funded, if you like, endeavour. It's not like I've got some fabulous fancy brand sponsorship or anything similar. The income from the Patreon not only go towards the operating costs like equipment and software and so on, but it also allows me to buy back time. So I give myself a paid, you know, couple of days a month or so in order to work on and produce videos. So that's where the money goes in exchange for a cup of coffee or a pint. It was recently in the news that a pint in London, you know, the most expensive pint in the country, was found in London for £8, which is horrific. Oh, we're totally being ripped off. Anyway. That's the Patreon. Check it out down below if you are interested and if you enjoy the Crimson Stitchery. And without further ado, let's talk about the top 10 yarns. So a little bit of a quick disclaimer, I am not being sponsored. No one is paying me to promote any of these brands. You know, a lot of them are quite common brands actually, who have been going for a long time, and I've tried different ones out. I'm based in the UK, so my recommendations are biased towards what's available here, but you know, the internet is a great place for online shopping, I hear. Another thing to state is that these top 10 yarns reflect my preference, which is to have a superwash machine washable wool and a reinforcing fibre, most commonly a synthetic one, nylon or polyamide, although I do have a couple of outliers, a couple of wildcards that I want to recommend. And in my last video, as I said, how to choose sock yarns, I go through the reasons for that in great detail. Obviously, you know, whatever floats your boat, you may have different preferences, and I love the comment sections in my YouTube videos because people are so generous in sharing their recommendations of why things do and don't work for them. It's so interesting and rich. So always please feel welcome to leave a comment and to, you know, scroll down into the comments threads in general. It's such a great place. With all of that said, I'm going to start with some favourite British brands, with some really, you know, steadfast brands that are pretty easy to source. And I'm going to start with number one, my absolute favourite. It's been around for like probably less than a decade, but it's one of my favourites, and it's Coop Knits Socks Yeah, with an exclamation mark. It comes in 4-ply and DK weights, and I prefer the 4-ply weight. Socks Yeah comes in a hank, so you have to wind it up into a ball yourself. That's probably the most annoying thing about it, to be honest with you, especially for a more mass-produced, commercially produced sock yarn. Generally, they come wound up already into balls or into skeins. I'm going to put a link down below to an infograph about the names of different types of yarn, and let me know if you want me to make a video about that, actually. That could be a good one. Like normally more commercial sock yarns come like this, but Coop Knits Sock Yeah comes in a hank, so you have to wind it up into one of these balls yourself. And yes, I've got a video on that as well, which you may find helpful to peruse if you so wish. And the reason that I like them is because, like I said, they are mass produced, so they are fairly affordable, and they come in the most wonderful range of colours, especially the blues, I love red, the Crimson Stitchery. I do not think that their reds are that spectacular, but the blues, the greens, the greys, all of those kind of sea kind of themed colours are really, really wonderful. And the other thing that is great is that they have a huge range of types of dyeing methods. So they do have lots of yarns that are completely flat, like dyed, saturated all the way through. They've got a neon set, which I love, which I used in my warm weather socks collection. I did a yellow neon for Twister Lolly socks, and I did a green neon for the Ice Pop socks. Love, 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 love it. They've got a bright pink neon, which I keep buying, and just, yeah, I love the neons. But also they've got a more heathery, feathery range, like, this is a very old pair of socks that I made. They're called Monkey. It's a very classic sock pattern by Cookie A. And this is not a flat colour, like this has actually got lots and lots of different tones, but this has been in the wash a lot, so it's kind of hard to see because they're so old. But yeah, like I can see by eye, for instance, that it's got this mauve colour is the overall, but it's got blues, it's got rusty oranges in it, it's got paler pinks and darker pinks, so it's got that heathered nature. So in general, like, you could just very easily, you know, pull up the webpage of Coupnik Socks, yeah, and really go to town. I've also heard that they're great for colourwork. I personally do not really enjoy doing colourwork, but they are very, very slick. It is a superwash merino and nylon blend, so they look really great in lace patterns and other kind of textures, which are my favourite things to knit and definitely what I design. It really, really shows that off very well. One thing to note is that I have found, compared to other sock yarns, including ones I'm going to carry on to talk about, they are slightly, very, very slightly on the thinner side of the 4-ply weight range. I definitely noticed this when I was doing a lot of sock designing for my warm weather socks collection that I just mentioned, because when I was like measuring all of the gauges and stuff like that of all of the samples for the patterns, I was finding consistently that my socks, yeah, samples were coming out just that little bit tighter and that little bit firmer, you know, maybe 36 or 38 stitches per 4 inches or 10 centimeters, compared to other sock yarns, which might be more like 34, even 32 stitches. So yeah, it's that tiny bit finer, so therefore it produces a slightly finer fabric. Really great for these summer sock projects where you actually don't want too much density and heaviness. So Coupnik socks, yeah, like I could even stop this video now, just enjoy, enjoy, enjoy. And yeah, the most annoying thing is that you have to wind it up yourself. And also, just to know, I think that they are sold per 50-gram hank, so you're going to have to buy 2 for an adult pair of socks, but you should be able to squeeze 2 shorty socks, like trainer socks, out of just 1 hank if you have small-ish feet. I have big feet, I managed to do it, but you know, you're very kind of scant with with the sock project and the sock design. But yeah, you're going to have to look out for the yardage overall of all of the yarn that you buy anyway. Anyway, you should know that. All right, number 2, sticking with a British brand and sticking with, you know, things that are kind of within slightly lower end of the budget, is another favourite, which is West Yorkshire Spinners, abbreviated to WYS Signature 4-ply. WYS Signature 4-ply. And they're really fun because they have a kind of classic range of base colours in quite a lot of different shades, and then they also have self-striping options. I actually just treated myself to, I really should just pick this basket up, shouldn't I? Anyway, never mind. They've also got self-striping options, so this is a new one that I just treated myself to, and they've done a designer collaboration with Sandra Rhodes. When I had that, I was like, oh, I've got to get something. I've got to get something, because this Sandra Rhodes is another designer who, like me, loves colour, especially like fuchsia and turquoise, so 90s, which are like 2 of my absolute favourites. So yeah, they just did that collaboration. They've got a huge range of sock yarns. They also do like Christmas ones. So this is one of their Christmas ones, you know, I think it was called Hollyberry. And then what they do is that their solid shades are the colours are the same dyes, I think, that are incorporated in the stripes. So then it's very easy if you want to do colourwork, or if you want to do contrast cuffs, heels. I didn't do contrast toes on this one. I just tried to use up all of the yarn. But yeah, if you want to do contrasting elements, that's quite nice and easy. They come in a 100-gram ball, pre-wound. It's pretty big. It's pretty generous with the yardage as well because it's got 400 meters per 100-gram ball. I find that these ones seem to go on forever. I can almost knit 3 individual socks out of 100 grams if they are not ones that are as long in the ankle as these, if they're kind of a little bit shorter. So that's quite good as well. Or you could buy 100-gram ball, make 1 pair of socks, and then use the leftovers for the contrasting of another pair. So many options, so many options. No wonder why sock knitting is such a such a thing that everyone gets into. And the other thing to note is that this yarn contains 35% blue-faced Leicester, which is a great specific wool fibre, wool breed for socks. And it's quite luxurious, so it's normally on the pricier side. So it's quite nice, in my opinion, that a very commercially available, mass-produced yarn in, a factory in the north of England, which is the centre of wool production in the UK, you can get this really wonderful fibre in an easily available yarn. So I think that makes it a really, really great option. It's definitely affordable. I'm not really talking about actual individual prices because prices change so much. So just go ahead and search up in whatever supplier you can find that delivers to wherever you live in the world. So yeah. Love West Yorkshire Spinners Signature 4-ply. In terms of the colours, I've got to say, although I have knit lots of socks in these, I do like their colours, but I don't love them as much as I love the Coop Knit Sock Yeah colour range. They're just different. They're a lot more flat. They're a lot more kind of very, very heavily saturated, almost a little bit kind of retro feeling, a bit 70s and 80s feeling, which has a very specific kind of aesthetic resonance and tone. So it's just different, that's all. It's just different. Okay, moving on to number 3, and then now we've got to the super, super budget version, which is Signet Truly Wool Rich 4-ply. This is so inexpensive. It's actually as cheap as chips. We're talking about a portion of chips. It's as cheap as chips. A portion of chips in a chippy, not in a like a pub or a bistro where they could charge you like £7 or something. No, we're talking about like a £2.50 portion of chips from a chippy, right? And again, it comes in little tiny 50-gram balls. It doesn't have a very big colour range, but what they do have is generally very nice. I knit a jumper in their mauve because it was the recommended yarn originally in Susan Crawford's vintage reproduction, and I knit like that whole jumper for something like £12. Disclaimer, it was about 15 years ago. Anyway, it's a long time ago. So it's really, really, really cheap. And also like there's a red called Geranium, which really does have that glow in the dark feeling of a pelargonium red, when you see on people's window boxes and they're like glowing in the sun. So they don't have a huge range of colours. They're again superwash wool and nylon, polyamide, but they are definitely a suitable budget option. They're just as hard wearing as many of the other sock wools that I have knit. There's another budget wool by Drops, which I'm mentioning because it's also cheap as chips, but they're actually not in my top 10 because in my opinion, in my experience, they're not as hard wearing as the Signet Truly Wool Rich 4-ply. So that's why that is number 3 on my list on British yarns and budget friendly options. Okay, next we're going to move across the English Channel into European brands. These are the commonplace brands which are so popular for sock knitting for a good reason. So I can recommend any yarn by Regia 4-ply, Fia Fedig. 4-ply again, it's 4-ply weight. I think they have an 8-ply version, which is the heavier, sport or DK weight equivalent. Again, that's superwash wool, nylon. I can recommend anything by Opal sock yarn or Opal. And for fun, I will also recommend the Zauberball, the crazy Zauberball. Especially look for versions of the Zauberball which have more plies and twists. So if you see something that looks a bit like a single ply one, avoid it, but they do have actual 4-ply and maybe 2 or 3-ply twisted versions which are much more suitable. I'm saying this because I've used both versions, and definitely the single ply version didn't hold up as well. So all 3 of these yarns by Regia, by Opal, and then the Zauberball, they do have single plain colours as well, but really the area that they excel in is the dyeing methods that they do, because they come up with all kinds of crazy and fun and, you know, playful self-striping versions, kind of fake color work, kind of fake marling. I'm saying fake because I mean, you know, you just keep knitting, you're just knitting a plain sock and the yarn is changing color and is creating those stripes and those patterns for you. And some of them really have very, very convincing kind of color work like effects, because it just works up and pools so that it kind of turns into small different motifs. And they've been producing these yarns for ages, they've been popular for ages, and for really, really good reasons. So if you want to spice up your sock drawer a little bit with a fun coloured effect, then definitely go for any of those three. And again, they're commercially produced. German yarns, I don't know what it is about German and you know, Germanic yarns from Germanic countries. I don't know if they are actually using like German fleeces or not, because it doesn't specify. They're quite likely to be imported. But there is something about those yarns that are very, very durable and hard wearing, and I imagine reflects the harsh winters of the region. So yeah, that really, really works. So for that reason, they are very reliable. And staying in Central Europe, we've got Lang Yarns Jawohl, which is a Swiss brand, which I also really like. They are very well distributed around the world. And the reason that I like them is A, because of their colour palette. They have a really lovely and vast colour palette. And again, similar to socks, yeah, they have the flat tones and then they have the more heathered tones. And just in general, the palette is very sophisticated. And I've noticed that they offer, you know, different shades of the same colour family quite a lot. And it's really nice. And also they used to include within the yarn itself, like right stuffed into the middle, like a Christmas cracker, they used to include a little tiny bobbin of matching coloured reinforcement thread, which was so great. You could either knit that into the heels or you could just use it for darning, and it's just really like a great, like high quality darning thread in general, that I have found to be excellent to use on a range of projects, not only hand knitted ones, but also when I'm repairing commercially knitted, mass-produced knitwear. So it always feels like you're getting a real bang for your buck in that sense, because you get the lovely yarn and you get the reinforcing thread too as a freebie. I'm not sure if that is, you know, that is still going on, but it used to be the case. So definitely look up, you know, maybe in terms of the actual product that is available at the time. So now I'm going to move into luxury yarns, and I'm going to go to hand-dyed, artisanally produced yarns. As I said at the beginning, I'm not really focusing on like special rare breeds of sheep and, you know, non-superwash experimental yarn brands, because this video focuses on examples of yarn that you know that you can just go out and buy and make a pair of socks, because thousands of people have done the same, and I can personally attest to it as well. And also I'm not that experienced with the kind of the new kinds of non-superwash and breed specific sock yarns that are coming out. I am interested in trying, so if you're experienced in that, please do drop a comment down below and let us know what your experiences have been, and you know, maybe some that have worked and some haven't, because it is different for everyone. But when it comes to sock yarn, let's face it, it's all about hand-dyed sock yarns. I've got to say, I never understood this at the beginning, because they are extremely pricey, reflecting the small batch and labour-intensive nature of the work. But there is just something so lovely about hand-dyed yarns that is just, there's just a quality to them that it is not possible to fully replicate in mass-produced, commercially dyed yarns. Basically, that's just the matter of it. And there are so many brands out there, so many. There's like new ones coming all of the time. And you know, knitting is not, you know, buying yarns and stuff like that, like I've always been on a really tight budget, so I'm not that experienced in like all of the luxury brands, but here are a couple that I like, that I'm happy to promote also, because the people that run them are really nice people. Firstly, I want to talk about Travel Knitter. They produce a sock yarn called Super Sock, which is BFL, Blue-Faced Leicester, and a nylon blend. And I've got it here. I used the yarn in my Wafer Crunch sock sample. It is a little bit more on the plump and generous side of 4-ply. It's a true 4-ply. It's just like plump and squashy and springy and bouncy. So when I was making that sock sample, you know, with the lace, I knit it with a lot of negative ease so that the lace could really open up, and then the plumpness of the yarn really allowed the motifs to really shine through. So that was really lovely. And this yarn, you know, this company, they always do tonal and like one colour yarns. And there is just something about the colours, the way that they reflect light. It's extremely, extremely subtle. It's extremely subtle, at least this shade is. But they really are very, very beautiful and very, very special. So especially if you like knitting lace and simple textures like me, or if you just want a, you know, singly coloured sock, one colour to maybe match something else in your outfit or something like that, this is a great one to go for. And again, it's BFL, so it's got that luster to it. Due to the specific type of fibre, and you know, BFL is fairly hard wearing, so it's just an all-round really, really lovely option to go for. Travel knitter super sock. The next indie dyer to talk about is the Wool Kitchen, which like Travel Knitter, she is also based in London, and she's the person to go for speckles and a kind of mild effect where the marls in the fabric are like all sorts of different crazy colours, and her yarns are just so delightful and fun. And I tried out a sock yarn which was BFL blended with bamboo. So as I said, all of the previous yarns that I've talked about have been blended with nylon, but this one has been blended with bamboo as the reinforcing fibre, and I think that is brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Bamboo is an extremely hard wearing material, and it's very, very sustainably grown because basically it's a grass. You don't have, it's not like a tree where you have to cut it down when you know, it's like when you mow grass, you know, it will grow back. So it's like that with bamboo. So that is a really fun option to have in a sock yarn, and lots of really bright and kind of very, very specific like neon pops of colour, but very, very enjoyable. So that brings us to number 10, and this is the one that's a little bit of a curveball, which is onion nettle sock yarn. I have been so curious about this yarn for such a long time, and I was so delighted to try it out really in depth. And it is superwash wool blended with nettle fibres. Because of the plant fibre, it's got this slightly heathery, mottled look that is blended with white. So I will say that when you see the yarns in person compared to online, they are a little bit more muted and kind of a little bit more faded. So that's something to keep in mind. But I love this yarn. I think it is so versatile. It can be used in so many things, and I definitely want to knit more of it. So onion nettle sock yarn is my final recommendation. And that is 10 favourite sock yarns and 10 favourite sock yarn brands. I hope that you have enjoyed this video, and let me know if there are any here that you have tried already and how that's gone, and maybe any that are new to you. And please do send me a recommendation, especially for this kind of wool and plant fibre reinforcing option. I think that that's really, really fun, and I'm eager to explore more. If you've enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the Crimson Stitchery for more videos just like this. Again, a huge thank you to all of my supporters over on Patreon. And if a monthly membership subscription is not right for you, you could also buy me a coffee over on Ko-fi. Links are provided down below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you at the Crimson Stitchery sometime soon. Happy sock knitting! Bye!